perfect. That's perfect.
That's good. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Nina,
Okay.
do you want to prove something more?
No, does anyone like present me when I'm going to speak? Is anyone saying something?
Shamile is, it's probably that Shamile is going to present you. Let me see in the schedule.
Yes, Yamile will present Nina.
Yes.
That's good.
Perfect.
And
Roxana,
maybe you can say it to me in English, probably. So I'm sure that you're talking to me.
Shamile, ¿podrá ser que puedas, por lo menos cuando estés presentando a Nina, pronunciar bien el nombre, así ella sabe que entra ella?
Sí, sí, de acuerdo. Lo voy a decir. Sí, sí, Nina Wolf.
Yes.
Perfect.
That's my name.
Bueno, Nina, the proof is done. Shamile will tell your name very clearly. Okay.
That's great.
And the other people, all the people have see in the back of the screen the interpretation mode, so you can hear in English and Shamil can hear in Spanish what you are talking. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
With the interpretation model. Okay.
But will I hear the interpretation as well?
Yes.
Spanish?
Yes.
Okay. So is it a recommendation that I speak a little bit slower, or?
Yeah, that would be very good. A little bit, not so slowly, but a little bit slowly. It would be fine.
Okay.
Thank
will
you
I
very
hear?
much. Yes.
Just one more question.
Yes.
Will I hear the presenter before me, or am I just going to wait here until it's my turn at 4:15?
No, you can turn off your camera, your mic, or you can leave the meet and then go back. It's
okay.
How you like. Tell me.
So am I not going to stay here like in this?
Yes, this meeting is the same meeting, but you can leave or you can stay. It's your choice.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but can I see the other like presenters?
Yes, you're going to see in this. Yes, in this meeting, you're going to see the other presentation.
Yeah. Okay.
That's why it's very important that we all close our mics. So.
Yeah, I understand. So the meeting hasn't started yet, I guess.
The meeting starts in 10 minutes.
Oh,
the real meeting, the live.
I understand. Okay.
Thank you, Nina.
Do you want me to turn off
the
video as well when the other people present?
Please. Yeah. Yes, the video and audio. Thank you very much, Nina.
Thank you.
Bueno, perfecto. ¿Alguien más que quiera hacer prueba? Estamos disponibles, tenemos muy pocos minutitos. Me gustaría saber si se encuentra Sebastián. Sí.
Sí. Nicolás, estamos contactándonos con Sebastián y con Mesías, con el señor Mesías, que son los que se unen, así que te pido por favor me esperen mi voz de inicio para poder lanzar. En sala también está José Cochran, o sea, me parece que tiene una participación por la tarde, en el segundo bloque. Regreso un momento.
Sí, nosotros aguardamos igual que ayer tu ok para empezar el evento. Ok, Roxana.
Gracias.
A vos.
Hola Nicolás, buenos días señor Molina. Tenemos al señor Raúl Molina, que es moderador del panel del día de hoy. ¿Podríamos hacerle las pruebas?
Buenas, estoy muy alto. Un ratito voy a ver si bajo un poquito la máquina o es lo que conviene. Sí, creo que conviene bajarlo un poquito.
¿Qué tal? Buenos días.
Baja.
Estaba... Nicolás salió un segundo. Estaba bien, Raúl. Ahora lo vemos igualmente si quiere.
A ver. Está también en sala el señor Ángel Paullo, que va a ser
Sí,
panelista.
y ahí entró Sebastián.
Sebastián.
Bien.
Señor Raúl, nos dicen que está bien su cámara.
¿Está bien?
Si la sube está mejor. Si la sube va a estar mejor.
Si la
No se
subo,
preocupe. Sí. ¿La estaba
pero
subiendo
se va a
sobre un
ver el
libro usted?
techo. ¿Ah?
Ah, ahí está perfecto. Lo vemos muy bien ahí. No se
O sea, si
preocupe.
la subo se va a ver el techo que es de otro color. Ahí
Blanco,
estoy en el
claro.
borde.
Ahí está
Por eso
perfecto.
pensé bajarla.
Bueno.
Déjame que pruebe, ¿ya?
Sí, no, me refería a subir el computador, exactamente. Si sube el computador va a bajar la cámara y...
Buenos días a
Good
todas.
morning, everyone. My name is Yamile Charanga, an expert from the General Directorate of Education, Citizenship, and Environmental Information of the Ministry of the Environment. I remind you, we have simultaneous interpretation into from Quechua, English, and Sign Language, and Spanish as well. You can access interpretation by using the icon at the bottom of your screen. Welcome to the second day of the 4th International Forum on Circular Economy. This 4th forum is held from Monday through Friday in order to inspire and articulate public and private sectors, academia, civil society, in order to bolster fair and decentralized transition towards a circular economy in Peru and in Latin America and the Caribbean. This important event is organized by the Ministry of the Environment, of Production, of Agrarian Development and Irrigation, and with the collaboration of the European Union Office in Peru. This event has a collaborative approach, and there are other institutions taking part in the organization of the event. Our co-organizers are the German Corporation for International Cooperation, the Swedish Embassy in Lima, the Danish Embassy in Peru, the Commission for Promotion for Export and Tourism, the National Society of Industries, the Coalition for Circular Economy in Latin America and the Caribbean, and SIMBA. Here, we have been given assistance by the Finnish Embassy, Konrad Adenauer Foundation, KAS Foundation in Peru, Hans Seidel Stiftung, the Association of Agrarian Producers Trade Unions in Peru, and the Chapter of Environmental Engineering of the Departmental Council of the Peruvian Association of Engineers. We'd like to thank the organizers, co-organizers, and collaborators. We thank authorities, lecturers, panelists, and everyone who is engaged. Today, the activity started very early at 8 with a business breakfast dealing with how to attain a fair transition towards a circular economy, which was coordinated by the Public Diplomacy Project of the European Union in South America. Today, we will have three different sections. First, a plenary, circular economy in the regions, a roundtable, strategic alliances between the public and the private sectors for the application and enforcement of circular economy with a territorial approach. Is that possible? Success and factors and challenges, co-organized by GIZ. And also in the afternoon, we will have a workshop producing circular economy-based roadmaps for the regions, co-organized with SIMBA. Please share your comments and questions through the chat function on Zoom. Finally, you can access the online exhibition and the parallel events or side events from the virtual platform of the event. So without further ado, we will formally start the forum with the first plenary session, Circular Economy in the Regions. We will be giving the floor to Mr. Sébastien Bourdin, a teacher at EM Normandy Business School in France, who will be speaking about territorial development based on circular economy. Without further ado, we welcome you, Professor. You have the floor. Mr. Bourdin, the floor is yours. Thank you for the invitation.
I'm going to share my screen. Okay, like that. So yes, the idea of this introduction about territorial development based on circular economy is to talk about how and why local authorities can implement circular economy. First of all, I just would like to come back about the global challenges that we are facing. The first one, and it's very important, it's the commodity price volatility and the deflation. In France, it's the case, but maybe in South America, it's the same too. You have high volatility of the prices concerning oil, etc., and so on and so gas, and so on and so forth. And this is a very big problem, and we need to find alternative to this carbon energies. Secondly, there is clearly a disruption of the markets and the production patterns. And finally, we are talking about the problems of pollution and environmental damage across the world. And the last COP26 that took place some days ago has revealed the importance to embrace the need to go to the ecological transition. And from this perspective, I think that circular economy is the good way to go to the ecological transition and to tackle the problems that we are facing with the climate change. At the local level, there are also issues that are very important. First, the question of the dependency, and some countries, some regions are very dependent about the external resources. So I think about the non-renewable energies, but not only these non-renewable energies. And this dependency can causes problem when, for example, there is geopolitical issues that are taking place. Third, secondly, the question of the local production patterns that are changing. We are facing desindustrialization in some regions. We are facing a problem of unemployment and delocation. And I think, and I will develop it quickly, that the circular economy is a good way to territorialize the local production, And finally, there is a big competition and a lot of inequalities between territories. And again, the circular economy can be a solution to fight and to address this problem. I just would like to come back on the definition of the circular economy. When we look at the common definition of the circular economy, I'm going to read it. The circular economy is about producing goods and services in a sustainable way by limiting the consumption and waste of resources and the production of waste. It is about moving from a throwaway society to a more circular economic model. What I think is that in this definition, it misses something that is very important. It's the territorial dimension. And when you look at this definition that is commonly admitted, there is no integration of the territorial dimension. And I think that the spatial, the territorial dimension, the local dimension is very important. Because if I take this example, how environmentally sustainable is this if we recycle waste on the other side of the world? I mean, a region can say, "Oh, we are doing a circular economy," and in the same way, they are exporting their waste at the other side of the world, and they can say it's circular economy because we are recycling waste. But if there is a big impact on the transport of this waste, I'm not sure that it's environmentally friendly. So my concern is that I definitely think that if we want to talk about circular economy, for me, it needs to be local. It needs to be territorialized. So when we talk about the links between territorial development and the circular economy, first of all, we are looking at, we are a group of researchers across the world that are working on the circular economy and the implementation in terms of territorial development. And what we see is first that the main stakeholders of the territories, I mean the SMEs, the firms, the elected officials, the citizens, are increasingly concerned about integrating the circularity into flows. So that's a very good point. And we observed a lot of good initiatives, and I will talk about them maybe in the discussion, a very good initiative to enhance the production and the consumption, but in a circular way. Secondly, when we talk about circular economy, I definitely think that is a good way, as I mentioned before, to territorialize the production, to have a local anchoring of the economy. Because let's take an example, a simple example. If we have a firm that needs the waste of another firms and they are localized very close each other, they need to remain here and to be close to each other if they want to continue to exchange waste. So this is definitely a good way to implement circular economy, to have a local anchoring of the firms and of the SMEs. And at the same time, if we want that the recycling is completely environmentally friendly, we definitely need to have a local anchoring of the economy. Third, the circular economy is also a good way to the territorial autonomy. As I mentioned in the introduction, there are a lot of regions and countries that are dependent of different other countries and regions across the world. And a good way to have a sort of territorial economy and territorial autonomy is to think about which resources I have on my territory, which resources I have in my region, in my local authority, and how can I use these resources in a responsible way, and if possible, how the waste that are produced in my territory can be recycled at the local level to have a territorial autonomy. And a good example is the production of biogas, because at the beginning you have waste from the biomass, then you put this waste of the biomass in the anaerobic digester, in a methanizer, and with this methanizer, you produce biogas, you produce electricity. So we start from a waste of the biomass and we produce energy. So this is definitely a good way to do, for example, in the context of the energy transition and the circular economy. Fourth, the question of the mobilization of the different stakeholders in a territory to put in place the circular economy is not necessarily self-evident. I have to admit that I worked a lot with a lot of stakeholders to implement circular economy, but it is not because there are a lot of waste that can be exchanged on a territory that this waste will be exchanged between different SMEs, etc. There is a need of strong coordination between the different stakeholders. And what I think also is that the public actors, the local authorities, can play an important role to make the intermediation between these different private organizations that want to exchange waste, that want to exchange and put in place circular economy. And finally, circular economy, it's not only about technical issues, it's not only about innovating in the technologies. It's also innovating in the way we are thinking, the way we are organizing the economy. And maybe if you want to implement circular economy at the local level to create territorial development, there is a need to create a real territorial governance with a share information of the share of the information, with a lot of discussions to be sure that everybody is included in the ecosystem, and like that we create a real ecosystem that is able to create regional development at the end. So maybe the circular economy means also to have another construction and another thinking about the institutional dimension and the way the local authorities, the elected officials are talking with the SMEs, with the private sector. And it's very important also to not forget to talk also with the citizens that most of the time have a lot of good initiatives that need to be funded, they need to be accompanied. And we also need to think about the researchers and the laboratories that are in place in the territory, because it's the interaction between the citizens, the laboratories, the firms, and the local authorities that can create a circular territorial ecosystem that creates territorial development. And finally, the last slide, to be on time, to implement the circular economy within territories, we definitely need to invest into the opportunities that are given by the circular economy. And for that, I think that a certain part, but a more and more biggest part than before, a certain part of the budgets of the local authorities needs to be focused on boosting the green growth. That means investing in waste management because it creates jobs, investing in the environmental protection and the resource efficiency. It means also for the national authorities to invest more into the research and innovation, to develop innovative approaches of circular economy. And also at the national and at the regional and local level, it's very important that local authorities can help to promote the resource efficiency in the SMEs and fund the SMEs to be sure that they will be able to implement the circular economy. SMEs are definitely a driver for the circular economy, and they need to be accompanied. And finally, when we talk about climate change, it's very important to talk about the low carbon economy. And again, a good way to implement circular economy is to invest into the recycling of the waste that can be transformed into renewable energies. So I took the example of the biogas, but there are also a lot of energies that can be produced from waste, and it is also an important way. So thank you very much. Gracias por su atención.
Thank you for your attention.
The next presenter.
Muchas gracias. Agradecemos entonces, esas han sido las palabras del señor Sebastián
Thank
Bourdin.
you. These were words from Mr. Sebastian Bourdin. And thank you very much. We are telling you that at the end of the presentation, there will be some space for questions from the public through the platform. We will now give the floor to Mrs. Mina Golf. She is the Director of Strategy and Circular Economy of the city of Göteborg in Sweden. She will talk about the issue and the particular case of the city of Göteborg. We thank Mrs. Nina Wolf for her presence, and you have the floor, madam. You have the floor.
Hello. And now I'm going to share my screen. Yes, my name is Nina Wolf, and I'm representing the city of Gothenburg, where I'm responsible for our circular strategy. And Gothenburg, as you may know, is the second largest city in Sweden, and it's located on our west coast. We have approximately 600,000 inhabitants. And in the city administration, we have about, or even more than 55,000 people working. And today, I am going to tell you a little bit more about our circular journey in Gothenburg. In 2016, the city of Gothenburg started up a tax-funded initiative called Circular Gothenburg, with the mission to push for change and to make transition to a circular economy possible in practice. Our focus was then, and still is, on the top 2 steps of the waste hierarchy: to prevent waste and reduce, to be able to reach our ambitious environmental and also climate goals. And since the start in 2016, we have had a broad approach, both in subject areas and also in collaboration together with many different actors. And we aim to make it not only easy, but also attractive and obvious to reuse, repair, and share. And in these pictures, you can see some examples of what we have done during the last 5 years. For example, 3 photos of our reused and redesigned offices, and also our free transport van for reused furniture and other reused things between our different departments in the city. A shared wardrobe for working clothes for those who doesn't need or use their working clothes every day. And also you can see a report with recommendations on how to use public procurement to speed up transition to circular construction and demolition. And finally, in 2018, the city of Gothenburg, together with other stakeholders, started up 4 completely new operations where citizens could repair things. They could give and get clothes and food, and also borrow tools for free back home. So Gothenburg has started our circular journey, but of course we have still a long way to go to scale up and also make circularity the new normal. And the latest important step in the right direction was our new policy documents with ambitious goals where circular transition is highlighted as a very important tool. According to our waste program, we should reduce waste from household by 30% until 2030 compared to 2020, and 40% reduction in our own city departments. And worth mentioning is that we can't reach these goals by just becoming better at recycling our waste, because that is not even included in this percentage. So what we have to do is to prevent waste and reduce. However, I must mention that we also have goals in Gothenburg for recycling and also littering, reduce littering and so on. So we haven't forgotten that. According to our new environmental and climate program, the city of Gothenburg shall reduce our climate impact from new and renovated buildings and purchased products, materials and services by 90% until 2030 from a life cycle perspective. And that is a really tough goal. And in this program, we have 7 strategies, and one of these strategies is the circular strategies, which I am responsible for. And we have chosen to divide this strategy into 3 sub-strategies to make it easier to prioritize actions and also to drive the development to circular economy. One sub-strategy is for the city administration itself, and we are aiming to become a circular customer. And I'll get back to that in a little bit. Another is for Gothenburg, where we, together with other actors, need to cooperate. And finally, the last sub-strategy is one for Gothenburg in an international context. A circular customer perspective fits well with Gothenburg's consumption-based way of calculating our emission. Since 2014, we look at the footprint perspective, where we focus on consumption, not only on production and emission from our production, but our consumption of things. In the circular customer perspective, we include the whole user cycle. That means when we buy things, when we use things, and when we get rid of things. And all these 3 steps need to become circular. And what we mean with that is that we have to reduce inflow of materials, especially new virgin materials, and also our use of linear business models, and replace them with recycled, reused, bio-based, climate-positive materials and circular design and circular business models. We also have to reduce waste, and that includes low quality recycling and landfill, and replace that by reuse and high quality recycling. So in my role as a strategy manager, of course, to become a circular customer and also a circular Gothenburg, I cooperate with many different actors, both many departments in the city administration, and especially I work together with 9 departments that are very important to give the right conditions to both other departments, but also to businesses and citizens to become circular. And we also work together with business, academy, and civil society. And from our perspective, they are very important doers, enablers, and also co-creators together with us in this circular transition. So our next step to scale up and to activate our own demand for circular business models and also reused and recycled materials. And we also have to stimulate the market to go from linear to circular design and business models, and to decouple economic growth from resource use. And an example of that, what we do already, is through market dialogues in an early stage, so that the market can have time to transform to circular business models, and also through our public procurement and framework agreements, which we already have for reused furniture, and soon we also have it for circular consultant services. And we are also working together with different actors to develop in development projects and also processes. Another step that we need to take is to develop better conditions for our own operations to reuse, repair, and share, and also motivate them to use already existing supporting conditions. However, to be able to significantly slow down the material flow and reduce climate impact by 90%, as I mentioned, that is a really tough goal. We probably, in the next couple of years, need to make it much more difficult to purchase and procure virgin materials and linear business models and practices. Today, we have both linear and new products, and we have some reused products, and it's almost always easier and more attractive to use the new products, virgin products, and we want to change that in the future. So thank you for listening, and I'm sorry if it sounded a little bit bad there, but you're welcome to ask a question later on, and also, of course, to contact me in the future. Thank you very much.
Agradecemos la participación de la señora Nina Wolf. Ahora,
Mrs. Wolf, for your participation. We will now greet Mr. Mesias Guevara. He is the governor of Cajamarca in Peru, and he will introduce the economy, circular economy, and the particular case of Cajamarca. Mr. Mesias Guevara, can you hear me? Yes, good morning. Yes. Good morning, Mr. Mesias. We have just introduced you. If you have a presentation, please share it with us so that we can take a look at it. You have the floor, sir. Thank you. Good morning. I wanted to greet everybody, those present. I am presently in the district of Namora in the province of Cajamarca in Peru, where we will start a very important works related to the development of aquaculture in our region. To begin with, I would like to thank you for the opportunity that you are giving me to share our experiences in Cajamarca. I wish to tell you that we have designed a regional development of public management where we have privileged a number of activities in the framework of territorial development. For us, our territory is a big space where we can carry out a number of productive and economic activities, many of which are to be located within the law on decentralization that we have in Peru. And as such, we have an important line that has to do with economic development, where different productive activities are related to agriculture, livestock, forestry, tourism, aquaculture, and the craftsmanship in their different formats. On the other hand, we also have a line that has to do with social development. And there we are working hand in hand with health, education, and to find a human model that we have called it Silk model. It has to do with health and education, sports and arts. But we have considered that something that has to do with sustainable development. In other words, a policy that has to do with the taking care of the environment, and that is where circular economy has a place. On the other hand, this model that we are fostering, we consider very important what we call the industry of mind. That is the development of mind the things we are now doing an hackathon, which has to do with the development of platforms, which as a first option, we have decided it should be aimed at the coffee beans, which are very important in this in our province. We also consider that in this territorial work world with economic corridors, both towards the border with Ecuador, where we have other provinces of our own area, and a very close link with the Amazon. There is a very strong corridor there. And that is where we have to develop our territory with these economic corridor. And the other one is the one that goes from the Ciudad de Dios to Cajamarca and the Amazon. But there's another one that comes to us, San Marcos, Cajabamba, to the region of freedom. There are places where we have cities that are moving fast, like Cajamarca, that has its own momentum, both a cultural and a social dimension. And this happens with all of the 13 capitals. Now, we have worked very closely with the National Development Agency under the auspices of the EU and the Council of Ministers. And there we have different lines of business to develop our region from a territorial development perspective. Now, within this agenda that we are working on, we have the circular economy. The circular economy has to do with climate change, recycling of waste, and there we are working with the municipalities now, with the province of Jaén and with the mayor. We're working on a project to improve the waste collection, recycling, and there not only the recycling as such, but the quality of the waste, to create jobs with the development of SMEs that are working in this field. But this is not only from the standpoint of recycling the waste in the different cities, but also activities that have to do with the side business, so to call it. For example, livestock, dairy, where a lot can be done under the flag of circular economy. When a tree is going to be cut down, we also have things that can be recycled. And that's why we are working with the Ministry of Production to give it an added value in the field of treatment of a policy of handling wood. So we can increase what the added value means, and also the creation of jobs and revamping the products of our agriculture specialists. Now, this has a very positive impact, and we are absolutely aware of that. And that's why we have that as a flagship of our National Development Agency, with the presence of the Council of Ministers. We will keep on working not only on an agenda and a roadmap, but also something that allows us to work with the municipality and with the environmental agency. We are working on eco-efficiency by training the different municipalities and having quality seals. This is done with the Ministry of the Environment, which is the overarching ministry in this field, and we have to work on the basis of these public policies. That's why, for us, circular economy also has to undergo a very strong advocacy process and training process or capacity building process so as that it has a positive impact on the development of our country and our region. We are also envisaging within this agenda of circular economy, within the idea of recycling, what electronic waste means, and that's where we are working very strong from the development agency with the municipalities, so as to make sure that these waste, the waste that keeps increasing exponentially, be used to create jobs for an important sector of the population, but also assisting SMEs. The electronic devices is a big problem. You know, TVs, cell phones. There are a number of technologies. We went from the tubes to semiconductors, the plasma, and now LEDs. And that's where we are to seeing what can be done in the field of coal to and carbon to generate greater jobs. Although we are working, although it's not really circular economy, we are working on the intensive use of solar cells and wind power. On Saturday, we started a new wind park with funds that were provided by the Ministry of Energy and Mines. We are working with companies, for example, to reconvert the system to move coffee machines that are using internal combustion engines today. They are the ones that move the machine, the agricultural machinery. Now we are moving towards solar energy for the same purpose. In other words, instead of having a diesel engine, we are putting a motor with a solar panel. So the question is, what will we do with the diesel engines? Well, again, this will, of course, be part of circular economy to generate jobs and to protect the environment. We have been working with international cooperation with the IDB, the EU, USAID, and the UNDP in order to consolidate these activities. Why? Well, because we believe that it is important to consolidate the circular economy, to avoid electronic waste, and to support the social activities with clothes so as to produce that as a social good. And I thank you very much for this opportunity, and I ask you to be forgiven because I'm moving to another activity. We are laying the first stone, the ground stone of a trout aqua firm, and I'm sorry, by the way, I have been connected, but the work carried out by some governors is very dynamic. That's why I didn't want to fail on you, and that's why you thank you very much for this opportunity. Good morning again. Thank you. We thank the participation of the three speakers. We will now move to the questions that have been made by the public addressed to the speakers. We are sure that with what the speakers have said, we are in a position to know a little better what the role and the territorial approach is in a transition towards a circular economy. That is why we will start by reading the questions. So Sebastián, Nina, and Messias, to please listen to the questions. The first question is for Sébastien Bourdin, which was the first speaker. And the question goes as follows. What is the importance of having initiatives in circular economy with territorial approach vis-a-vis non-territorial initiative, private initiative. Sebastian, if you can please respond. Thank you very much.
Concerning the question without territories or with territories, I think that if we want to attain the objectives that are fixed by the COP26, that means that we need to address the question of the climate change. We need to reduce our emissions of gases, etc. And for this, if we are, if I take the example of the waste, if we are recycling the waste at the other side of the planet, so that means a hard territorial circular economy initiative, I think that the impact on the environment will be very high, and the advantage to have a territorial approach is that we are eco-friendly because we are using waste that are produced in the territory and we are recycling the waste here. And I talk about recycling, but I can talk also about the eco-functionality, about the eco-conception, about the industrial ecology, territorial industrial ecology, and all these initiatives are territorialized, and it's very important for me. And the need to have a territorial approach is also to enhance the collaboration between the different stakeholders of a territory, because when we implement a circular economy, definitely we need to have all the stakeholders together to work together. And the circular economy is a good way to make all the stakeholders working together, which is not the case when we are implementing an initiative in the circular economy that is not territorialized.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias. Esa fue la respuesta.
Thank you very much. That was Sebastian's answer. The next question is for Mrs. Nina Wolf. And the question is as follows. The initiatives of the Gothenburg city have created an economic benefit? Do you measure it? How do you do that? So Nina, you have the floor to answer this question. Thank you very much.
Was the question for me? Please, can you say it in English?
Yes, the question was for you. Can you hear me? The interpreter here. Can you hear the interpreter or not? No, you're not connected to the interpretation. Can you?
Question about how the initiatives of City of Gothenburg generate an economic benefit?
Yes, and how do you measure it?
Thank you. Yes, actually it has. Especially we saw that on buying reused and redesigned furnitures. And we measure that through different projects. And I think all of them has been very successful, both in economics and and also design and creativity. And also for construction and demolition projects, we have seen mostly also reduction in costs. Not the most innovative projects though. And finally, I think we have also the what you call it, disposable products, the one-use products. When we try to reduce that in our departments, it will also save a lot of money for us.
Muchas gracias.
You're not listening to the English, madam, are you? We thank Nina, those who have been part of this panel. We have finished this plenary, and we thank again the participation of the different speakers. We will now move to the discussion panel of this plenary. which will be moderated by Mr. Raúl Molina. He is an international consultant, former Minister of Territorial Governance of the Presidents of the Council of Ministers of Peru. We give him a warm welcome for him to be able to moderate the next meeting. Mr. Molina, you have the floor.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. Good morning, everyone. First of all, a big thank you to the organizers. I would like to thank the European Union in Peru and the Ministry of the Environment. And in this session, we will try to tackle and look into the Peruvian case, I would say, taking into account the two previous presentations from Nina and from Sebastian. And we will take into account also the presentation by the governor of Cajamarca. In this session, we will be accompanied by Dr. Yuri Chessman, representing the Secretariat for Decentralization of the Office of the President, Mr. Juan Pichigua, an economist, on behalf of the General Office for Macroeconomic Policy, Ministry of Economic and Finance, Mr. Angel Paulo, Regional Manager for Economic Development in Cusco, and Ms. Pamela Bravo, Deputy Manager for Environmental Strategy and Climate Change, Municipality of Lima. Good morning. I don't have the pleasure to have ever met Pamela, but I have known the other three panelists for a long, long time. Today, we will have two rounds of questions. We want to know your uptake on the presentations made so far. This circular economy topic is sort of new here in Peru. And we have seen that in the regional government of Cajamarca have been conducting some exercises, but we are still far from multidimensional and comprehensive strategies as in the case of Gothenburg. But this is very important for our future, especially taking into account local governments and the region. So it's important to know, your uptake on these ideas, on this presentation. So first round of questions. Each of you will have 4 minutes to answer. And when we are approaching the 4 minutes, I will make a gesture here on the screen. And after the 4 minutes have gone by, unfortunately, I will say so verbally. Sorry if, I don't mean to intrude, but we have to stick to our time frame. So first question. It's the most obvious one. What's your uptake on the presentations? What opportunities do you think circular economy offers in the case of Peruvian regions? And what's your point of view from the institution you represent? Let's start with Yuri. Your 4 minutes begin right now for your answer. What opportunities do you think there are ahead in store for us? Thank you very much. Good morning. So I would like to thank you on behalf of my boss, this opportunity to share with you what my agency has been doing. And this has to do with the previous presentations. The presentations have been great. I would like to make a link between all these ideas with a focus on what my agency is doing. In 2018, the European Union and Peru entered into a project for sustainable development to promote small and medium-sized businesses at the local level, especially. And through this project, together with the European Union, we have been working very hard on these projects, which have to do with sustainable and inclusive development, and also investment on the regions at the local level in order to improve competitiveness. These regional development agencies are working very hard, and they have been created as pilot projects in 7 departments, in Piura, La Libertad, Cajamarca, San Martin, Atunjo, Apurímac, and Cusco. These are the departments. These previously selected departments meet the requirements for this project. Something important which is connected to all of this is circular economy, because circular economy seeks somehow to create awareness and these among the people in these departments in order to provide guidance for profitable, environmental friendly production. So within this framework, we have, well, first a training program was approved, a training program on circular economy. And this program invited attendees to learn about this topic for them to apply it on the supply chain. And this supply chain, well, it's not only one, there are many supply chains, and they are being implemented in the 7 departments I have mentioned. Because there's a lot of economic activity in these regions and departments. And we have selected 210 local actors representing academia, civil society, government, and business. So, undergoing training, well, we have 210 promoters of circular economy in these departments I have mentioned. Somehow we are creating or laying the foundations for this regional circular economy. For that, in this agency, we have created a link also with those responsible for circular economy as part of the program, which has been very successful, and it's now going on with lots, with a big push behind. A decision has been made to collect for January all these successful case stories. And as I said, we have invited academia, civil society, government, and business. And all of them will meet to share their good practices. And a jury will be created to select the best practices to implement them somehow on the field. Time is running out, sorry. Sorry to intrude. You can just wrap up the idea. Just wanted to say that this successful, that has been very successful. That's all from me, thank you. So, same question for you, Juan. So what's your uptake on the presentations from the point of view of the General Directorate that you represent, and what opportunities do you think there are in store for us in Peru? Yeah, did you hear me? Can you hear me, Juan? Sorry. Oh, okay. Well, thank you for the invitation to take part in this event. It's a privilege to be speaking here on behalf of the Ministry of the Economy. So my uptake regarding the presentations, well, I will mainly focus on what Sebastian and Nina said. You know, they have left me lots of food for thought, a very clear message. Sebastian spoke about this territorial autonomy. Yeah, circular economy is not just creating an economy somewhere and sending waste somewhere else, causing harm along the way. So we have to think of autonomy. That's very important. And Nina's message and this concept of circular client or customer, I mean, that's basic, essential. That's key, I would say. I mean, if things don't start at home, then you will not make progress, really. And what we have seen about Gothenburg, well, that was crystal clear. So that's my uptake, my two big ideas that I wanted to highlight. Of course, they are important as in any diagnosis about environmental issues. When you have to set priorities, and we at the ministry have different policy tools to create incentives and promote change among the economic actors, those who are involved in big decision making, so that citizens and these very actors behave in line with expected outcomes. So in this case, budget, for instance, because we are from the Ministry of Finance, so we allocate resources in order to get an outcome and an output, so we can in turn achieve effective goals in order to improve the environment. As part of the public budget, we have some budget programs which are very specific. And I think that the ministry has the capacities and the skills to support, to contribute to attaining these enhancements, so that every sector, every territory can take an advantage and achieve these goals regarding the economy. So, and I think that would be all from me, because then I have other ideas that are cropping up in my mind. So I will not have enough time. Sorry. Thank you. So in the next round, you can touch upon the challenges for these budget programs to encourage firms along the way. Now, the regional perspective. Angel, what's your update? What do you think from the point of view of the regional government of Cusco and your responsibility as regional manager for economic development? What opportunities do you see on the horizon? Cajamarca is doing something along the way. What do you think about Cusco? Thank you, Raul. Well, based on the presentations we have seen, I have two clear ideas in my mind now. How can we go from this vision to a territorial vision? And I think that Nina has shown that speaking about circular economy requires a territorial vision or view. And circular economy forces us to view economic development from the point of view of production and from consumption as well. And regarding your question, I would like to say that in the regional government, we are promoting a specific strategy in order to promote competitiveness, technology, sustainability. And we call it competitor strategy. Yeah, we want to prioritize our production chains in the region. And we have deployed a set of tools, a toolkit for public investment, and also instruments which are in the hands of the private sector. We have a convergence between the public and the private sector. For example, we're working on the coffee sector, on the avocado sector, also on some cattle, local cattle. As part of the strategy, we have seen some progress regarding innovation. Mainly, we have implemented a project to give more dynamism to the regional economy. But we think that's not enough. Innovation should be seen as responsible innovation, and that forces us to embrace circular economy. That's, I mean, a beginning for us. we're starting to give more strength to the circular economy. And we are working with the PSM in order to implement some actions. Also, we want to make it very local and to have some collective action as well, because we embrace more people. So it's important for us in this scenario to focus on decentralization, because this entails a territorial view, because from the national government, what we have is a sectoral view. It's a kind of top-down approach. If we don't adopt a bottom-up approach, we will not be able to make much progress. As a matter of fact, there are certain initiatives that we have been promoting regarding circular economy, and they have a bottom-up approach. That's important. In the coming days, we will be launching some eco-adventure initiatives regarding the tourist trade, for instance. We want a better model to deal with traceability, with waste, cattle farming. We want to have this view based on innovations and circular economy. So we have made progress regarding innovation. Now we need more circular economy so that it becomes more relevant. So this decentralization approach is key, and work should be done in the fields at the local level. And how do we deploy these policies? If we have a system or a budget system that focuses on sectoral work, we will not make progress. We want to work hard, but when we think about the way in which ministries work, we see that we have to work more with a territorial approach. So we have to change this institutional structure, because sometimes we locally cannot work. Sometimes we don't have the necessary elements. We are working, of course, hard, but we have to fully embrace circular economy. Raul, I think that my time is up. Thank you. Thank you, Angel. Thank you very much. Okay, you have touched upon something which is very important, which raises questions for Yuri and Juan for the next round. So this territorial perspective, the national government, the federal government, doesn't necessarily promote the frameworks that allow regional or local governments to implement a multidimensional work or view, I would say. Now, Pamela, in the case of a city, of a municipality, how do you apply this, where you have 10 million people, as in Lima, because you have a huge concentration of people and activities? That's very different from what happens in small towns, in the regions around the country. I mean, what's your reaction? What's your uptake from the point of view of a metropolitan government? Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Well, if I think of the presentations, Nina has this strategy of a circular Gothenburg. Well, Lima has, I mean, it's beginning a kind of similar strategy. In June, the municipality adopted a new ordinance which includes these circular economy principles for local governments with a very specific approach, because the metropolitan area brings together 42 municipalities, I would say, or districts. So this is the scope of the ordinance. And the objective is to promote systemic thinking, a holistic view for the city, from the municipalities, resource allocation, the preservation of these resources, and minimizing externalities. The role of local governments is key, because the municipality is the entity which is much closer to citizens and has this chance to get, to get very close to citizens regarding education, action, And because of jurisdiction, that's based on other regulations. If we think of solid waste, water resources, so we can deal with these topics directly with no intermediation. And this is part of an overall process since the ordinance was adopted. First, local government should identify those things that they are already implementing in the area of circular economy, even if they don't consider it circular economy. So municipalities need a well-trained team of experts who can identify these actions for them to plan circular economy measures. In our case, this strategy will cover 2021-2030 in line with our local metropolitan climate change plan, covering 2021-2030 as well. So they are, hand in hand regarding environment and climate change. How can we identify these measures? Well, many of us speak about circular economy, and when we do so, we normally speak about recycling waste or solid waste, but doesn't necessarily mean circular economy. Maybe it's the opposite, because we think of a linear process. The idea, as Nina said, as my colleagues have said, the idea is that this input, this product, should remain as part of the process. Yeah, circulating. That's why we call it circular economy. We want the item to circulate. We don't want to generate as much waste, whether solid or not, because we might be speaking about treated wastewater. There are many options that go beyond solid municipal waste. And municipalities, can do a lot. And if we think of the city of Lima, we have implemented several actions, adopted several measures. First, we looked, inwardly. And for example, regarding organic waste, which is very important, wastewater from factories or industrial plants. Much can be done, and in this sense, one of the challenges is the forging alliances with private firms, with civil society. And, well, a lot can be done. And of course, we need the political will of our authorities as well, of course. Thank you, Pamela. So, there was a first round of questions, and we touched upon this topic, on how to embrace circular economy for local development. You know, my attention was struck by some ideas. If we think of the future, where can we make more progress in Peru? I remember Sebastian's percent, the local anchorage of the economy. I thought of the scale, in Peru. In the case of Lima, there is no doubt at all. The economy represents 11 million people. So the volume, the workload, can provide the scale and for reuse, recycling, reutilization, recirculation. So what happens with our rural economies, local governments? Everything is very different from urban areas in Europe, because there it's easier maybe to exchange this waste. In the case of Gothenburg, I liked what Nina said about the number of people working in government, from the city, and especially the number of departments or municipal offices involving these circular economy strategies. I think you mentioned about 9 areas, and that reminded me of something that Angel mentioned. Circular economy. This has to do with multi-dimensions, integration of different components. from urban flows, and sometimes from a sectoral view, as it normally happens, sometimes it's very difficult for territorial or local governments to embrace and to adopt them. How can we overcome this challenge? What can we do for this work to be implemented locally so that local governments have more room to maneuver, so that they adopt this circular economic approach? So I would like for you to touch upon these topics in the second round of questions, because if we think of the future, the objective, the goal would be to give answers regarding the main challenges for the implementation of circular economy in the territories in Peru. What strategies might be implemented and adopted to fully implement circular economy in the territories? Mela has mentioned some ideas that they are trying to do in Lima, as Angel said, in Cusco or Messias in the case of Cajamarca. They are making some attempts, but what else? What else can we do? And what challenges are we going to face? So we will follow the same order, starting with Yuri. So Yuri, you have the floor. Thank you. Well, there are many challenges. The Secretariat is working hard, but the things we have 25 regional governments managing 25 departments, but around 2,000 municipalities managing districts and provinces in Peru. So we're speaking about 2,000 public entities involved in circular economy. So the operational capacity is just providing guidelines. And this has to do with public policy setting and setting the standards that are required for the implementation of circular economy. One of the big challenges is who is going to do it? Because here you have huge turnover rates. Stuff keeps turning over. You know, faces keep changing. If you think of a mayor or a governor, well, they are replaced every 4 years, you might say. So what's the strategy that we need? Well, we have to work based on this program, promoters for the circular economy on the territories, based on the actors, academia. So for them to disseminate circular economy ideals, in college, civil society, why? So that everyone can understand what circular economy is and means. That's the point where circular economy can take root. Then governments, I will teach what circular economy is, but those who are not convinced, who don't believe, how can implement it in the public sector? That's important. And business, the business sector is a key player. This is key for recycling, and these 4 actors are important. And I said 210 promoters are getting trained because they are convinced, they believe in circular economy, and they will go out to the field once they have graduated so that they can multiply the efforts that have to be done. This is the challenge, but on your own, you cannot. Lima alone cannot do it. I mean, they are working hard in the territories. There is a kind of perception, but this is biased, and we have to change it. Of course, we have to change it because the focus should be put on territorial development, and we need allies. Governors are not enough. We need actors from academia. We need actors from civil society, from business, in order to work on productive change. And that's part we are overlooking. I mean, national or international development agencies are giving us an opportunity, but we have another 18 departments where to work on circular economy. We have to start this process, and we have to train more promoters within a time frame which is logical. We need 1,000, 2,000 promoters of circular economy. We need authorities, officials. We need business people. they need a lot of knowledge. Civil society, as I said, we need 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 promoters. We have limited capacity here at the Secretariat, but as we are like articulators of national policies for regional and local policies, we can multiply this effort, the strategy, that's promoters on the territories out there in the field.
Now, Juan, Angel was telling us about a challenge. The project of national agencies has a lot of potential, but we still have a long way to go. Angel was talking from Cusco. The approach of productive chains it can happen that it is not enough to have full-fledged activities to allow to exchange raw materials or inputs between them. So this is a topic that has to do with the economy, not only circular economy, but economy where the ministry has to work in the field of promotion. And I was also reminding you about recalling the budgeting issue. Juan, you have the floor. First of all, everything can be improved, and I will accept that there are no approaches that are always valid. They are valid during the analysis, and the approach of productive channels crop out of the sector. The role of the ministry is to support the sectors and the different levels of government. And that's where I want to start. I think both the economy ministry and the Ministry of Government cannot take on responsibilities that have to do. The sectors are actors of the main lines of politics in the specific topic of a circular economy. And the national or subnational governments are also regulating operative or operational differences. But they also work on specific aspects. It's not the Ministry of Economic Affairs. They only take the regulation on board and then they implement it. So what does economy do, we believe, besides the resources that we are talking, which is the manager of the public resources, of course. But this is an operational mechanism that is the final reflection of what we are doing. But we have a number of other tools, for example, the incentive programs for the local level. We have a goal number 3, which is for the implementation of solid waste that has to do with it. Who regulates the aspects of the management? It is not the Ministry of Economic Affairs. The ministry just makes sure it advances, it moves, it is implemented, it works. But the programs are a mechanism that has to be reviewed within. I was reviewing the budget for 2022, and at a national level, one of the main budgets is 0.36 solid waste, and here maybe it's not enough, but it is important to see what the resources are that have been allocated for each of them. Another tool of the ministry are the budgeting programs. Of course, solid waste is only one, but it has a number of other budgets which are also aligned with environmental topics that have to contribute to improve the first one, which is the center of circular economy. the 7 R's as we have seen that. I don't want to get into those details. We have the budgeting programs, and the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Finance also has some national plans. For example, the National Plan of Competitivity and Productivity, where again, we are relating to the issues. But when we have, you have 30 seconds, Juan, the importance is to realign our priorities. We all have to realign, and the ministry is fully ready to introduce the changes it has to do to make sure that we are aligned. Thank you very much. Thank you, Juan. Angel, what are the challenges for the future? You have said something before. What are the strategies that could be implemented for introducing the circular economy in the territories of Peru? Thank you, Raul. Well, I think that an important one is to strengthening the national development agencies, because we have to define the location of the agencies. And I think this means refocusing how the project was imagined. The regional governments, we do not have a participation in the design of the projects. We are subjects, but we have no place to say, well, this project should be carried out this or that way. These are things that have room for improvement. We also have the development agents, but it goes to the model we want. I think we have to go beyond the standard visibility role. We have to have a binding role. For example, how the elements are defined and analyzed. What happens today? It is the sector itself that puts the limits, and we are the ones that have to then start moving from those limits. As long as we don't have a full control of a project, we cannot carry it out. This is something that has to be done at the ministry level, and it is good that the 3 ministries related to the topic are present in this meeting. We have to design systems that will give us the possibility to work. Otherwise, we are limited in scope. We have a national family agriculture plan, which is fantastic for a circular economy. But this plan, can it be implemented? Well, partially because we don't have the tools. The tools are not aligned on the purposes. So these are regulation tools that we do not have. We know we could go beyond that. In Cusco, we have to talk to a national circular economy policy. We must do that. It is part of our challenges, but we have to become instrumental. We cannot remain in policies and training courses. We have trained many people, but that is not enough. We have to be much more aggressive to put that on the public agenda. For example, we are launching a competition Peru, but again, they say, well, choose your chain. Well, for example, reutilization of waste, but we cannot put others in because you have to choose. I don't think we can move. I don't think we can move towards a circular economy if we cannot, first of all, give the necessary weight to the territories to carry out the programs we want them to carry out. That is why this is a limit. I'm not saying this is that there's nothing can be done. That's not true. A lot can be done, but we still have our limitation. We need a more holistic approach. We have to work within the regional governments to work with other people, the transfers, production, agriculture. These are challenges that we have, and we have to take them. And finally, we need to link innovation with circular economy. I talked in the beginning of the models of circular economy, the business model. These have to be developed. There are very interesting business models for reusing products. There are 5 ways you can possibly produce bricks. So what should we do? What is our role? Because in a traditional fashion, they are polluting. So these are the challenges we face. And thank you for your time. Thank you. I'm sorry for having to cut you off, but the forum continues and we have to respect the following groups. Pamela, same question, but from the perspective of the main city. What are your challenges, or what strategies can be introduced to keep on developing the efforts carried out by the municipality? Thank you, Raul. Well, as we said before, and this has been repeated, it is important to have a team that has been trained and that knows what circular economy means for the city, so as to implement it properly. Now, as Yuri has said, something that we all have is that the civil servants change, because you can train somebody, then that person goes away and there is a loss of continuity. As we know that we are absolutely changeable or interchangeable, and the task has to go on. Well, what the municipality is doing, and we always try to do, is to develop governance, environmental governance methods from our perspective. Then this goes to the members of our assembly that is made up of the representatives of different levels. There are also representatives of academia, of private sectors, the civil society, young, and you name it, for them to assist us in the decision-making process of what can be done from the time we are formulating the strategy. This is something that we are doing so that the city is empowered to follow the strategy. As has been mentioned before, the provincial municipality can be working on 43 municipalities, but to reach them, we have organized a technical team that is involving 10 departments of the municipality, plus the team that works directly on circular economy, because they will work on the implementation. To do that, we also have the support of the international organization 3GI, and our team has also received support from KS, and this is very important to have a political availability. For example, when there is the Declaration of Cities of Latin America and the Caribbean on circular economy that was signed a few weeks ago, this also allows, makes, or commits the city of Lima to keep on going with the process. And to be able to work it along different lines of our municipal organization. And this can be used in the future. This is very important. These are some of the issues I wanted to mention. But that's all I really wanted to say. Thank you. Thank you, Pamela. After the first round of questions, I think the answers have been extremely interesting, and the different perspectives. 2 panel members of the national government, 2 decentralized, the perspective of each of them, and regional government, municipal government with their differences and complex. To continue on this, I wanted to take over the answer that was given by Mr. Bourdin to the question that was posed to him. If we could have a circular economy with and without territory, and he repeated and he said, well, without it, you can't do that because the cost would be too high. I think that in Peru, we are still starting some steps, for example, to the advance as the city of Gothenburg is doing in Sweden. But what counts is that from what has been said by the panel members, there is a challenge to get ourselves organized as a state to turn the territorial approach into a reality, to work better, and that the national government, and Yuri and Juan have said so, can leave enough space to the other regional or municipal governments to bring on board what Angel called the perspective of the territories. In other words, to allow them to work with their own budget, their own methods, their own way, and that they have room for improving the perspective of the territories. We cannot, from a national perspective, take everything on board. Now, this being said, when we talk about territory in a case like Peru, which, as I said, there is a society with a very important city like Lima, then a number of cities with 500,000 or 1 million, and hundreds of smaller towns with a completely different development pattern. The challenge is this: how do you merge them to make sure that the circular economy works, to have exchange between small local economies that will allow them to have some kind of scale? And here is where there is a very important role for the regional governments, and in the case of Lima for the metropolitan government. How do you make sure that these districts with 42 municipalities can follow a rationale that can generate more opportunities for circular economy projects? And for the rest of the country, that's where the regional governments come in. And Pamela has mentioned that about the staff that comes and goes. There is a turnover that is very important. So as a country, we have a tremendous role, a capacity building role, to make sure they can actually do what they have to do on a territorial basis, as is being done by Gothenburg, and that they can play a more active role in moving all of these actors together. I think that this is a key issue in the field of circular economy. They have insisted everybody has to be involved: companies, governments, civil society, academia. These four shafts that are present, ever present, they are key to the circular economy, to have a shared vision, as our colleagues Bourdin and the lady of Gothenburg was saying. The regional agencies are a very powerful concept. Now, Angel wants them to be even stronger, and that's where there's a big agenda for the government, national government, because the Secretariat cannot do everything on its own. But they can move away from this strict obligation of the productive chains that cannot link to others, and therefore introducing possibilities for them. There is a lot to be done, absolutely, but it is of the essence for the future of the experiences and territorial development in Peru. Thank you very much to the organization. I will finish with this, with my responsibility. Thank you to the panel members. The richness of interactions has been enormous, and how they have enriched us from the original speakers. Thank you, Raúl Molina, and all of those who have taken part for the very good presentations that we have had this morning. Now, we will start the second block. This is organized by the GIZ project from Germany. It will be moderated by Ms. Giselle Delachis, the founder of 3 Vectors. We invite her to take the floor. We welcome her. Giselle, you have the floor. Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Jamil, for introducing me. I will see if you can see my screen. Yes, can you see it? Yes, absolutely. My name is Giselle Delamea. I'm a co-founder of 3 Vectors, the first company of Uruguay on circular economy, and we are expert on circular business. Today, I am pleased to have this radio project, which is called Circular Hour. What does that mean? This space comes with the support of the German Cooperation Department, GIZ, which assists Peru to reach biodiversity and climate objectives and to comply with voluntary commitments within the framework of the 2030 agenda. It is called the Circular Hour, and it comes by implementing 2 projects from the German Cooperation Agency. The first one is sustainable development and SMEs at the subnational level, implemented by the PC and co-financed by the European Union and the German cooperation with the GIZ and the Spanish cooperation ICID, the purpose of which is to strengthen the regional development agencies. They contribute to promote a sustainable development and to have a better competitiveness. In the framework of this project, we have developed a capacity building project, of which I am part, applied to value chains in 7 territories. She is reading at very fast speed the names of these promises. The second project has to do with the transformation towards a green economy in the cooperation with PAGE, the purpose of which is to strengthen build their capacity with the development and the NDCs by using the green economy approach. I also wish to remind you this has to do with the 4th Forum of Circular Economy on circular economy, and that started yesterday and will end on November 26th, and that is how we thank this to the German Cooperation Agency. Today we have 5 deluxe guests. There's one lady with whom we will be speaking on strategic alliances in the public and private sectors for the application of circular economy with the territorial approaches. What are the barriers? What are the challenges? I was listening to the prior panel, whether the territorial is viable. There is no circular economy if it's not territorial. We must be able to move the circular economy principles to the regions. We must be able to create bioregions and markets where we exchange policies, because that's how the new economy works. Otherwise, we will end exporting waste and importing waste, and we need to work in alliances, in public-private partnership to redesign our business model. So without further ado, You have to know that you will be able to ask questions through menti.com with the code 247880076 or scanning this QR code, or Jamile, I will ask you to put it in the chat, the Menti to participate, because after the final panel, we will take questions from the audience. Well, how are we going to divide this hour and a half? First of all, block one. I will introduce two cases. The first will take us to the region of Machu Picchu in Cusco, where I will introduce you Jose Kirchlin von Stein and the mayor, Mr. Baca, who will talk about the circular focus in Machu Picchu. But first, I do not share the screen anymore so that you can see a video from the production. Thank you very much.
Hace 5 años,
5 years ago, Peru was about to lose the UNESCO name for its biggest cultural icon, Machu Picchu. There were observations by UNESCO to the treatment of the inorganic. There was an accumulation of waste with a mountain of plastic bags. This is something that can be seen, so much so that in the El Comercio newspaper, there was a picture of Machu Picchu waste. We have taken on board the commitment to foster this national system. We have to create a circular economy because Mother Earth recycles everything. Circular economy formalizes jobs in Peru by creating richness and improving the quality of life. The main reason why the waste didn't go into the trains because the plastic bags, we are talking about 4 tons per day. So through England, we gave a compacting machine. It reduces 3 2-meter high bags to 50 centimeters. This allowed to have both PET and organic waste inside the train. And in 2 months, we released all of the waste by putting it on the train, and the municipality put gardens where the waste used to be before. To do so in July, the UNESCO came to re-evaluate and again made it possible to become a green or non-vulnerable city. But England said, we have another problem, and that is the oil of the 100 hotels and restaurants that they all end in the Volcanota River. 1 liter of oil needs 1,000 liters of water. We put a plant to process the oil here. So one of the problems that was the oil that was polluting the river became something that is a glycerine, that is a detergent and an energy source. But that was not enough. We went to the third challenge, and the third challenge was the organic waste. In very large cities of Peru, it goes to a silo, it does compost, and it becomes methane. So we built a transformating plant to make this into biocarbon, charcoal. The biochar retains both methane and CO2 of the waste for 200 or 300 years in the soil. So it fights against the greenhouse gases. It improves the soils and makes sure that the degraded areas of Machu Picchu, because of the fires and the human presence, allows us to recover these areas and that we can recover the biodiversity here. So a problem that was the organic waste becomes again in a resource that the communities can use for their own crops and to reforest. The last machine that we installed was the one that breaks down the glass bottles. They took the sand from the river to build their house. And when the waters come, there is no protection. But now, because they are using glass from the bottles, you avoid for the inhabitants to have to use the sand from the river.
Corrigiendo el actuar del hombre, se ha conseguido.
Anthropocentric actions have led to having an orderly management of waste in the town. And we've corrected the wrong actions. Within 5 years, we've gone from having Machu Picchu as a monument at risk according to UNESCO. So we've removed it from the at-risk monuments lists. And we've become a model of environmental management. And we are the first world wonder to receive the carbon neutral certificate. We are an example here in Peru, in Cusco and in Machu Picchu. It is important to say that we need strategic allies for this end, allies coming from the private sector. In this sense, we would like to thank the groups and England in recognition of them all. So the award goes to us all. Companies do not need to meet the needs of the consumer, but rather meet the needs of Mother Earth and develop a model of circular economy.
Muchísimas gracias. Este es el momento.
Thank you very much. At this point, when you're attending the meeting in person, you stand up and applaud. You give these people a standing ovation. So I would like to welcome Jose and Mr. Darwin, the mayor, because although it has been quite detailed what the initiative is about, I would like to go into further detail with a few questions, such as, how do you support the project? What's the situation with citizens? Are they all involved? It's amazing to see how, starting from a huge problem, you discovered plenty of endemic issues and went from trying not to meet the consumer's needs, but the needs of nature. So, Jose, tell us a bit more about the initiative. How do you keep it alive? What's the driver for the initiative? Jose speaking. So the initiative is the union of the private and public sectors to face together this general issue. Tourism means there is a number of people who add to the residents. Machu Picchu has had a pilot project with high visibility given the International Tourism Organization and UNESCO, who have both awarded and rewarded the initiatives of the ASI group, and with Inca Terra as well. Inca Terra is a hotel group, American Express actually selected us out of the popular vote of 300,000 readers of their magazine as the best hotel brand in the world. And as Incaterra, what do we do? Well, we handle the environment, which is to say you need to know your environment, your entourage. From 1978, we have been documented the flora and fauna according to their scientific names. In Machu Picchu, we've been active from 1971 when we co-produced Aguirre la Ira de Dios, which was a film. When Machu Picchu was about to be declared in fault, thanks to the support of the municipality by means of a contract between Incaterra, the NGO that works with us, we decided to face the direct issue, the immediate problem, which was waste. And I think that is an example that could be repeated elsewhere. The pilot project has been completed, but now we are trying to look for other alternatives in the territory to find a new way of working, to know that waste is selected at the origin and then it is used with an added value in a way such that it can generate economic value, meaning that the costs for the municipalities will decrease and that we will be able to generate a currency, an economy from that circular economy. So we are trying to complete the full circle because it is full known that the circular economy starts with a product. But we need to complete this circuit to close the circle. So we're trying to recover our biodiversity in Machu Picchu, which has been touched by the presence of human beings. And in the union between the public sector, as presented by the municipality of Machu Picchu, is ideal. We have a dialogue, we work together, and we have together worked towards innovation in order to remove the waste in an organized way by adding value to it and by creating a model of waste management which differs from the universal one. Universally, waste is disposed of. It is buried in a big hole that's covered with a geomembrane which emits carbon. Now, carbon times 20 becomes methane. That is what draws people's attention, because human beings, through their presence, have a detrimental presence in the place with the generation of gases. Now, Machu Picchu is a model of success. Giselle speaking, it is amazing to see how you went from danger to a success model. Now, I would like to yield to Mr. Darwin to let us know how the cooperation came about, what the engagement of the citizens is. Are there other entrepreneurs such as Jose who also present their services and their undertakings and put them at the service of the citizens? Where is the mayor? There he is. How are you? Darwin Bacaleon speaking. Thank you. I would like to thank you for the invite and share my experience with you from what we see in our cooperation between the public and private sectors. To us, once we joined the management, it was very important to be able to have a strategic ally, which is the AGEM group. And so for that, we had to work on projects which were already underway. And we needed to understand that the preservation of the environment is something that has been a debt for several generations now. And unfortunately, our modern society has forgotten what our predecessors used to do here in Peru, in this part of Peru. The Inca They knew the environment and what to do for it. They respected the Pachamama, the Zamus. And we understand that it is now timely to go over the teaching of our predecessors and looking for allies to do so. AG Group is a very important ally to be able to move forward with a number of projects. I have a number of slides that I've put together. Do you think I could share my screen? So maybe if we could see them, I would show you some of the projects that were mentioned. Mr. Mayor, go ahead. There we are. Can you see it? Yes, absolutely. Darwin Bacaleon speaking. Thank you. So first, I would like to mention what has already been announced at a world level, and that's the fact that Machu Picchu is the first world wonder and touristic destination to be awarded with this carbon neutral seal. We have undertaken commitments for 2030 and 2050, where we expect to make a number of investments and to take a number of measures. We have put all of this into place with Incater and with the private sector in general. We have presented all this as members of the UN, and it has been assessed as such. We are very proud to have been awarded the carbon neutral certificate as the first World Cultural Heritage Site to be awarded the seal, which encourages us as government, as citizens, and as private sector as well, I'm sure, to go on working on the preservation of our environment. It must be said at this point that the world increased its energy consumption by 12 in the 20th century. And what we need to do is to try and iterate the kind of experiences we've gone over in Machu Picchu. 60% of the main planet's ecosystems have been degraded or are used in an unsustainable way on account of precisely the excessive disorderly growth of our population, which was not planned. It must also be said that by 2050, we will need to multiply the efficiency of resource use from 4 to 10 times. As a nation, we must all have goals, and Machu Picchu understands that we need to use the resources at hand efficiently. It is also important to say that in this concept of linear consumption generates solid waste, which become mere waste, sadly. They are not reused. Can you hear me? Giselle speaking, yes, perfect. Is that the end, or do you have any other slides? Darwin Bacaleon speaking, yes. Linear economy is not sustainable. Circular economy helps reduce, reuse, and recycle. And that was our experience in Machu Picchu, which has helped us go on teaching our population. It must also be said that with law number 1278 for the comprehensive management of solid waste, we have seen a way to be able to work with the legal parameters we have, such as circular economy and the revaluing of waste. And our experience helps generate new jobs and to increase innovation, because in being able to segregate and separate waste and to grind crush glass, what we do is to enable certain sectors of the population to use waste in order to, for instance, create crafts. We are also committed towards the sustainable economic growth, which both at the public institutions level and with secondary institutions help do environmental education so that everyone understands what is sustainable and what is not. We are already implementing all of this with our experience, and we expect to go on working towards these kinds of initiatives elsewhere in the future as well. For instance, the machine that we use to crush glass and the one used to grind have given us a certain experience. And now having everything centralized in one same site has enabled us to streamline the process where organic waste is turned into a product that is ultimately used in gardens, in leisure spaces for the population, parks, and also for agricultural projects. Understanding what the potential of the biochar is for agriculture. In that sense, these experiences with the different plants and machines that we have installed and it must also be said that the plant where we treat oil in order to be able to reuse it has also allowed us to reduce the amount of waste that we dispose of. So we turn waste with oil, which is waste, into fuel, and bioglycerin, which is a great possibility, a great thing. We now have a product that helps us and that further engages the population. Another thing I would like to say is that when we separate residues in the origin, it is something that we have learned from others. It has been developed elsewhere, but from a very young age, we understood that separating waste, both organic, inorganic, and PET, can be turned into something that has an added value. And today we have understood what circular economy is and what our commitment to the environment is and should be. So through this experience, we have had many visitors from different regions of Peru, all of whom work with AGE and Incaterra to be able to replicate these experiences. Thank you very much, Mayor. Giselle speaking. With the video and now with your presentation, you have already answered to a number of the questions I had, because I now see how everything fits into the same model and how you can reuse waste. So congratulations. Given that time is limited, I will move on to the second example, but do not go anywhere because I'm sure we will have questions from the audience. Now, I would like to share the case of Diego Valareso, the manager of the Peruvian Fruit Program from the Solidarity NGO in the Piura region. And that is what Diego will talk to us about. He will talk to us about the circularity in the banana value chain. Diego, are you around? Diego speaking, yes, I'm right here. How are you? Giselle speaking. Okay, so tell us about your case, Diego, how the initiative came about, what motivated it? Diego speaking, great. Okay, I'm Diego Valareso. I work in Solidarity, which is an NGO, and we have been working with the banana chain for many years. Let me tell you about that first. It is born in Piura, which is an important center, and it reaches about 9,000 producers with 1 hectare each. So we have 9,000 producers who produce organic bananas certified with fair trade and which are exported to Europe, the US, and Asia in particular. So very particular niches. Throughout the 20 years that have gone by since the birth of the chain, we have grown in terms of production, in terms of the area covered, but also in terms of waste, basically because there is a certain type of plastic that's used to cover the bananas and they last for about 12 weeks. So that plastic used to cover the banana bunch didn't have a good management of solid waste for between 15 to 20 years. And that was when the problem came about. When the chain grew, it became almost unsustainable. We were generating tons of plastic a year. And if you went to Piura, Suriana, Gorigotillo, which are the banana areas, you could see waste everywhere along the way. So as a group, we started to work on an initiative and we tried to find different ways to face the issue with bioplastics, but it was too expensive, it was inefficient, it didn't last much in the field because the plastic must endure sun. We used paper. It didn't resist much either because with the humidity and rains, it disintegrated, and then it was up to us to analyze recycling. That's how we began to see a number of examples from the rest of the world, some of which we have adopted, and we created a company that's called EcoBan. What EcoBan will do, I have some of the waste for you to see it. So we pick up this green plastic, which ends up being scattered everywhere, and which is dirty for the environment, but also visually. And it ends up in the rivers as well. It is very often burnt, which generates toxic gases. So what we do is to store it and to transform it into these green pieces that are made in the fruit pallet when we export it as cushioning. So what we do is take waste from the industry and transform it into a material that's used for the industry itself. What's interesting with this product is that each container generates about 35 kilos of plastic waste, all of which can be transformed into almost 70 of the plastic pieces that I was showing you, and a container needs 80. So we are almost even. Now, for the banana chain, what this means is that we can truly reach the sustainability aspect, the environmental needs. We meet the environmental standards of the buyers, what they demand from us. And these recycled pieces from the plastic waste help make some economic savings, which is, of course, useful to some cooperatives when they export their products. What's important also is that we've gone through a long way to get here. Giselle speaking, right? That's what I was going to ask. What was the motivation? Do you have any other needs? Was there a supplier or a buyer that demanded this of you, which led you to work on a prototype? Did you get any support from a cooperation or an alliance or other? Can you tell us a bit about the path to get here? Diego speaking. Well, the pressure came from society itself, which saw plastic everywhere, and from the market, because when they came to visit to see what fruit they were going to purchase, they were shocked by the level of plastic that was scattered about everywhere. So that's where the issue came from. In terms of solution, it was a long process. We started working with the EU, which funded certain studies to quantify the plastic waste that we had. And now lately we worked with GIZ, with ARM, which helped us put together a formal business plan with technical aspects, with the levels of costs. And that is what we transformed into something tangible. We put together a plant, we installed machinery, and we are already at work in producing the first cushioning pieces that I showed you with the recycled plastics, and we will most likely be active selling those pieces to the industry itself by January. So we've been through different levels of institutionalization and help. The company that we have created is completely sustainable and it works regardless of any kind of funding. It is a company that's made up of small producers and small producer associations, by an importing company, and by a group of banana producers. So it is a true industrial symbiosis which has been applied to the value chain of bananas, right? Diego speaking, yes, exactly. That's what we're doing. We're analyzing what needs to be done to reach appropriate environmental levels and to reduce the costs. Giselle speaking, and are you only in the region or do you also export outside of Peru? Diego speaking, well, for the time being, the idea is to collect the plastic waste from the banana industry and to provide those plastics and those recycled cushioning pieces to them. But the idea is to also be able to supply other industries and to make bricks or poles or other pieces. So this is a first pilot project for a much longer dream, much bigger dream. Giselle speaking, right. It's incredible. How about strategic allies? Do you have any strategic allies aside from these cooperations with the state? For instance, do you have any kind of alliances with the state? We work a lot with the PCM and we tried to work with the municipality of Sullana and from Cutillo, which are the nearest ones, and we have made some headway. But a lot of foreign cooperation from Germany, from the Netherlands have also been very helpful. But yes, basically we are getting there. The idea is to have alliances with the municipalities so that we can get the material and transform them. Giselle speaking, right, Diego. We will go back to you. Remember the case so that you can ask your questions. I will now introduce two more panelists whom you will see pictures of, but you will soon be there, see their faces. One of them is Wilson Santander, a main teacher and a researcher from the Agro-Industrial Engineering School at the UNSM, and Ana Cecilia Angulo from the Center for Promotion and Social Action, CEDEPAS. So welcome, Wilson and Ana Cecilia. We are going to have a bigger panel now. We are going to widen the circle in our virtual radio here. We have a number of questions that I will ask of you. So circular economy and collaboration. Can we move forward in a circular economy without alliances? Why are alliances so important? Wilson, please tell us what your views are on alliances for circular economy. Are you around, Wilson? Wilson speaking, yes. Thank you. Well, Giselle, from the experience I have as a teacher at a public university, I've also worked at private companies for foodstuffs because I have been trained in food industries. And logically, what that tells me is that we can do nothing on our own. We must work in a synergetic way with other institutions. As a public entity at the university, for instance, we always have strategic alliances that we build with the private companies. So we have been working hard on research with the private sector. The university has the human capital, the human resources to undertake research, and we need to put that at the service of society. So in that sense, to your question, I would answer that there must necessarily be a kind of synergy. We speak of the 5 shafts, 4 shafts, 6 shafts. The numbers vary, but what we need to have are the components to guarantee the sustainability, because that's what matters to us, sustainability. We have already listened to the experiences of the other panels and the other panelists in the first block who were saying that the indicators are very cold, meaning that training doesn't truly show that the person trained will put what he learned into practice, that we need to have much clearer indicators to see how to apply what they've learned on the field. So how much of that do they apply to circular economy? That is, I think, what should give us a clearer idea. It's not so much the number of people that we have trained, which doesn't mean anything because people can then do anything with their certificates. That's a mere piece of cardboard, but it doesn't mean more than that. So Giselle, in that sense, I think we must have these strategic alliances, both with the civil society, with companies, and with state-owned entities. Giselle speaking. So alliances to experiment, to stereotype, because as you were saying, Wilson, if all we have is knowledge, but no practice, no rehearsal, then it will be very hard to create alliances. Alliances to what end, right? That's what we need. All countries in Latin America need to evolve towards a level of essays, of trial and error, test prototypes, because that's when the magic happens, when we dare try new things. And then with design, we can actually move ahead with a competitive value proposal for the market. Now, I wanted to ask Ana Cecilia a question now, which is around. If we think of success factors, and we always think that we ally because of pricing, the old economy would say we need to ally because we have competitive prices. It is of use to me to buy from you. We are going to ally out of trust because I like you, because we share a culture, for instance. Because of a purpose, for a purpose. Those are the new conversations in the economy. We share a purpose, which is why we will ally. But what are the success factors in those alliances? Why should we ally to circular economy? Because of resources, because of waste? Ana Cecilia, can you tell us a bit? Ana Cecilia speaking. Thank you, Giselle. Greetings to all presenters and congratulations on the experiences that you've shared with us.
For me, it's a pleasure to see that both experiences talk to the rural sphere. And I think that we should be talking about the development of rural territorial development. And if that is our starting point, and we work along these lines, we will see the social construction that goes beyond the political boundaries. And in this case, we find all of the players linked not only to the environmental issues, but also the cultural issues. So I think that one of the success stories is to consider the circular economy as being part of a strategy or a basic element to have the territorial development. On the other hand, the circular economy has one that has to provide competitiveness to the territory. It is not only the environment that is at stake. Of course, it is very important, but to the extent we need the sustainability of these proposals, of this new model of the economy, we have to look for competitiveness and to look for income alongside the chain value. The value chain, I'm sorry. We have seen the experiences in tourism. We have seen the importance of private company in Machu Picchu. Some of them say that they started working on the management of the area, which means acknowledging everybody, the privates, the publics, everything. Of course, the academia at some point in time, because when you talk about circular economy and you talk about innovation, academia is right at the center of this picture, without forgetting the civil society organizations, the communities, the NGOs, you name it. So all of these stakeholders, all of these players have a role to play. And stemming from that analysis, they would be the ones who become factors of success for circular economy, and then to discover what happens to make sure that this model it becomes sustainable, equitable, and we should provide it some kind of support through education and communication. In other words, that we have to train professionals, technicians that handle this and whose goal is also the economic model and, of course, education. In the prior segment, we heard that we are training professionals, we are building capacities around technicians, but it would be good that this turnover of staff can be seen on the territory too. So they move from one job to the next, but always within the territory. Thank you very much. That's part of the challenges. And that was a question that I had for you. What are the challenges and barriers that we have to overcome when we have to move on? Very often we have people who are highly trained, but they go away from the territory and the whole territory issue is lost. The public is much more intelligent than we are. So I want to share some questions from the public, which is the training and the territorial approach and so on. Some are very concrete questions. Others talk to the processes themselves. Others are wider in scope, where the alliances have something to do. Here, this is the question for Incaterra and AJ. The participation of organized civil society in the environmental culture. How does that work? How do you guys work in this field? Jose, can you answer that? Absolutely. It comes with training, with education. We are losing the feed.
¿Qué cosa es nuestro entorno? ¿Dónde está?
So, what are the critical points? What is it that we have to keep or uphold? If we don't know what our environment is, we cannot be conserving anything. So the environment is the first thing. And once we know how that is, then we can train people on that environment. An example of the environment is that the company Incaterra has a property within the urban area in the Machu Picchu district. It is an island within the park of the natural sanctuary. Within the estate, the recovery of biodiversity by watching the birds, what they eat, by providing them their natural foodstuffs, by sowing something that attracts them, that they like. We have been planting that, we have recovered the biodiversity, and today it has been validated by observing 214 species of birds within a property, within an urban area. This exists nowhere. This has been validated by the University of Cornell, which is the largest lab in the Americas. In orchids, the recovery of the biodiversity has led us to make sure that the American Orchid Society wrote that the largest number of native orchid species in their habitat without any artifacts is located within the estate. Butterflies, 111 species, and we can move on and on to different species. Now, this knowledge translates to the population into a number of teachings for the children. I think this has been going on for 14 years. Every year we gather all of the kids to give them workshops during their summer vacations to know what the environment is all about. From there, we have a culture, and that is a culture of sociability with people, with their environment, which in turn becomes or turn into natural actions of those that have been trained to get the proper knowledge of their environment, to have a proper conservation of the environment, and to enhance it. This is what we mentioned about the litter, when we know that we have more than 1 million people, strangers coming as tourists. The impact of waste is very high, because we have the village of Machu Picchu is located within a canyon, so it can only be taken away by train. So how do we take away the waste? Well, the ideal would be not to take it away, to select it and treat it on site, and to take advantage of that on site so that it has a value, not only in economic terms, but also environmental and social. Are you close to zero residue? Are you close to the goal of zero residue, or how much do you still need to go? How farther? Far. Well, that's a euphemism. No, absolute means nothing. It's just divine. This doesn't exist. No, first because the creation of waste comes from many people. In other words, the zero waste means using 100% of the waste. Now, the possibility of reducing the number of tons or kilograms of waste that are leaving by train with the energy generation of carbon footprint, with all of the logistics around it, because carbon is the new economic variable of our decade.
Es interesante.
This is interesting. We have had some activities which have to be replicated, and we're working on that. Today, it is the turn of the imperial city of Cusco. There is a meeting where the mayor of Machu Picchu and myself, we are both invited. We are speaking before a number of mayors in Cusco, some of them who have come from Lima, what the pilot program is all about and how to implement it with the commitment of the provincial Cusco mayor, with whom Incatera already has signed a contract. AGE is a bottling company belonging to one family who started the bottling company by recycling glass bottles from beer, when in the bad area of Peru, the shining path where there was no logistics. Now this family company is present in more than 20 countries, even in Egypt, Central America, in many places. As a family company, it is the only bottling company at a global level that belongs to one single family, and they have committed to becoming green and to making sure that their operation becomes a model, not only in Peru, but elsewhere. So the replicability, the possibility of having done from having made Machu Picchu an international icon of humankind in such a fantastic natural environment with high diversity, because it is located in the upper part of the Amazon basin, there are a number of attractions that make it for Machu Picchu to be the marvel over and beyond what man has made. But it is a marvel of what mankind is doing, and what nature introduces us. It's biodiversity. Wonderful, Jose. This is fantastic. I want to go back to Menti with this question and to emphasize the support that you are getting in the development, the regional development agencies are having in the field of circular economy. This is a program where we are working to have a training program for these. And today we have the participation around the table with public, private sectors of Piura, Cusco, and civil society of Cajamarca and the Academy of San Martin, where we are taking this number. That is why I would like to go back with this question. What organizations and how can you manage the capacity building and financing aspects for the development of circular economy businesses? This question is open-ended for whoever wants to answer. I wonder whether it is Diego or whoever has not taken the floor. Wilson, says Ana Cecilia, if you want to answer. I can tell you about my case, says Diego. In the case of our case, we started working with ARD. They are the public-private agency of Piura, and we managed to these little funds that built the business plan. In other words, how to make this business sustainable. That was the main path. For the second stage, we have the support of Innovatec, and also with Concitec and the private parties involved in the same value chain. That was the sequence. As I'm talking to you, Diego, I have another question for you. They tell me, what do you do with the banana racks and how the rackies is reinstated to the soil? It is ground and then you send it back to the soil. In some cases, there are producers who use it as a biofermentation elements. But so far, that's what we're doing. And I have another question for you. Esquinescu, congratulations for the reuse of material. Question, how does the material go to the technical cycle by avoiding the extraction and utilization of new plastics? Is it still linear? Well, our bottleneck today is that there is no efficient replacement for what is being used to recycle. That is why we have to work more, we have to innovate technologically, but for the time being, what we do is that the gathering of these plastics and turned into coins, into corners, and it is something that will start creating some kind of awareness for the banana user to know until where we can go. The dream never ends. It's a cornerstone. So how do make it tangible, to move it to the community and not leave it only at a training stage? So these are the small concrete aspects that really lead to a cultural change, which ultimately is what we all need. I have one more question. Maybe for Wilson or Anna, how do the ARD promote the public-private partnership for these circular initiatives? Well, I would like to share the experience of the ARDs in the Cajamarca region and north of Peru. And to tell you that we consider that this is a strategy that fosters not only territorial development, but also the inclusion of new strategies, new models, such as the one on circular economies. Through the ARDs, where we have members of the fourth shaft, private sector, public sector, civil society, and the academia. These are the four. So we have allowed for a better funding, both for the training of the technical teams and looking for funding for the projects to come about. And I would like to mention as ARD that we also have a work plan. It's an operational work plan. And this is very important to the extent that we manage that our experiences become successful, because this work plan allows us to determine what the activities will be, what will be the goals, the funding required for each of them, and the people responsible of each and every segment of the work. In other words, we have to move from best wishes to a planned job, with certain factors that allow us to see how we are making progress, and also to reorient the strategies should the case arise. And we also want to mention that for the circular economy and other strategies to be actual, it is very important to have leaderships. And as such, the regional governments are called to lead these changes, to be on the forefront as the development of the regions, of the territories, and to involve and motivate the population, the citizens. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ana Cecilia. I don't know whether Wilson wants to give us another point of view. Well, in the case of San Martin, I think that the ARDs have, I'm talking about the prior regional government, because we had a divorce between academia and the executive, mainly because of political reasons. Very often they destroy the main goal we have at a regional level. But in this new government, we have had some better approaches. For example, in the PPPs, the university has been participating. For example, in the case of the regional government, and some other organizations like the Ministry of Agriculture, to develop some joint proposals, but for some projects that can indeed be tendered. In other words, the university has had a big role to play with the case of Innova, or the agro-rural case, agro ideas. These are all funds that allow us as academia to introduce innovation. As our friend Diego was saying, this is a step that they have made for manufacturing the corners of the pallets, but this could be also used for the pallets themselves, because that's important. And obviously that wood comes from forests, but this means that we should not any longer think only about corner posts, but full pallets. This is something that comes from the region. So I think that we are not, of course, at the same level of progress than some other regions who have done much more in the field of circular economy. I have another question for Machu Picchu. Have you considered the production of biogas with organic residues or waste?
No, no.
The answer is no. The biogas, although you call it bio from a vegetal origin, it is generating carbon and methane. And it is not necessary in the case of Machu Picchu to look for an alternative to the origin of the energy, because we have a very big hydroelectrical power plant that provides clean energy to Machu Picchu. On the other hand, even though you may wish to do the exercise, the space required to do that would mean destroying part of the environment to have enough space for the development of biogas. In other words, we're talking about a canyon, although the pictures show you some heights, because that's how Machu Picchu was developed actually, but it goes down 400 meters down. That is the canyon, and that is where the Machu Picchu district is located. So this cannot be used. I have one question. How do you make sure the population is more aware of the importance of separating their waste? Discipline, that is the answer, says Jose Kuchlin. First of all, we need an action will, and that comes from the municipality. It is up to the municipality to do what it has to do in the field of a service to be provided by organizing the community. That is the way it works. In other words, the waste collection and segregation includes vegetal oil, something that is not standard elsewhere in the world. The segregation of differentiation is done with a popular awareness, strong authority by the municipality, and the sense of pride of participating in an activity that makes sure that Machu Picchu has suddenly had a new acknowledgement at a local perspective. And this is not only what man has done, but what it does, what the president of Machu Picchu is doing in his own environment. And this is valid for a very wide population. So we're almost finishing. We have another 5 minutes, and I would love to tell all 5 participants to tell me in 2 words, 1 sentence. Imagine that we have cities, entrepreneurs, politicians, other people from the whole world listening to us that are starting the circular economy pattern. What would be the 2 tips to have alliances and collaboration for circular economy? Only 2 tips. What would you suggest? The first thing that crops up. Come on. Well, we have to become waste people. We have to take care of our own. We have to bend down and pick up anything we find on the floor. Anybody else? I think to talk, to look for alliances, for people who think like you. And stemming from that point, then construct and give the example first and then the training. Mr. Mayor, I think that, as has been said by Diego, it is the strategic alliance that has to exist between the state and the private sector, because although you may have a fantastic initiative by the private sector, if you don't have an agreement with public sector, and this has happened everywhere in the world, if you don't have that binding, any project is bound to disappear, and this has to last over time. Because we will move on, but there must be an environmental management system that will continue in the case of Machu Picchu until 2050. That is where we know that there will be sustainability, and we will revalue learning from the past. Again, we feel identified with our culture. We understand that the Incas respected the conservation of the environment. You can go to any Inca city and see rocks that are cropping out of the earth, and they could have broken, but they didn't. They adapted. So this is something that is not done today. These are old-fashioned concepts that are being brought on board again, but we should take them as number one. And there must be a binding between the private and public sector of the essence for this to move over time, to see how we have changed. You had a training in agribusiness. You have changed agriculture into agribusiness. According to Bill Morrison, who is one of the creators of permafrost, he says our agribusiness is geared at producing money and not food. So how do we go back to basics, which in the end of the day is culture? So I will continue with Wilson or Ana Cecilia. You have the final word. Ana, go ahead. I will finish. Thank you. I back everything that has been said. We have to value our house, our environment, and as such, in this care that we must give to the alliance of all actors, public, private, academia, civil society, private sector, we must have innovation, education, and communication. Thank you.
Over to you now, Wilson. Wilson speaking, okay, just but a few words as you asked. First, I think we should have clear governmental policies for circular economy, because it's nothing new. Peru is just joining, but it's existed for a while. And then, as was said, how do we convey that idea with clear commitments with our strategic allies? Because when we have long-term commitments, I think, as the mayor was saying, we can become sustainable. Those are the two aspects. Giselle speaking. Thank you. Indeed, when we think of the long term, we very often get there faster. It's been a huge pleasure to me to be the host of this radio show, as we called it, the Circular Hour. So once again, I would like to thank the German Cooperation for Development as implemented by GIZ, because it gave me the opportunity to be the host of the show and to get all your ideas, which were very enriching. And you are a great inspiration through all these ideas for circular economy. Without further ado, I will now leave you with the rest of the program for this 4th Circular Economy Forum. And on behalf of GIZ, thank you very much. Bye. Thank you all. Bye. Thank you, Giselle, and thank you to all the participants for your enriching interventions. The live streaming comes to an end for today with this last block, but the activities of the forum go on, which is why I would like to invite you to take part in the other activities that will take place in the afternoon. At 3 p.m., we will have a workshop on how to put together circular economy roadmaps for regions co-organized by the Peruvian company Simba. Those of you who have signed up are welcome to join by clicking on the Zoom link that you got in the confirmation email. At the same time, meaning 3 p.m., we will also have a side event entitled the Victory and the Augustine Alliances for Circular Economy, where Mr. Ricardo Fernandez, the coordinator of development projects of ASPEM, will be presenting. At 4 p.m., we will have one more side event entitled Independence, Sustainable, Resilient City, Applying Circular Economy with Citizen Engagement, where Mr. Marcos Alegre, the president of the HEA group, will be presenting. We remind you that access to the side events is free, and you can access by clicking on the links that are published on the program of the virtual platform on the forum, but you can also see them on the chat of the platform. Remember to join early because the capacity is limited. We also welcome you to visit the virtual exhibition, which is available in the forum's platform, where you will find 16 stands between circular cases and organizations leading the transition towards a circular economy in the country. Thank you very much to all. Thank you for having joined today. We look forward to seeing you at the rest of our side events. Have a great rest.
you.